you ever loved a sport and then suddenly it didn't feel the same anymore? Not because it got harder, but something about it quietly changed. Me too. And that's why I want to talk about it. Not to complain, not to blame anyone, but because I think a lot of people feel this and don't quite know how to name it. I still love triathlon. I love endurance sports. I still love training, early mornings, the discipline, the process. But something feels different. And no, it's not just about races selling out or lotteries or prizes. That's not the point. The point is, when a sport grows fast, the experience of it changes. And that change doesn't hit everyone the same way. There's a concept in psychology called intrinsic motivation versus extrinsic motivation. Intrinsic motivation is when you do something because it feels meaningful, it feels self-chosen, it aligns with who you are. Extrinsic motivation is when the drive comes from medals, rankings, validation, access, and status. Here's the interesting part. When a system starts emphasizing external markers more than internal meaning, people who are intrinsically motivated often start feeling uncomfortable. Not bored, not lazy, restricted. And that discomfort often shows up as irritation. Not because the sport is ruined, but because it's no longer neutral. When something is niche, it carries a strong signal. Doing triathlon used to quietly say, I'm willing to structure my life around something hard. As the sport scales, that signal gets diluted. Suddenly, the gear becomes uniform. The aesthetics become standardized. The narrative becomes repeatable. And that doesn't make it bad, it just makes it different. What once felt like an expression in identity can start to feel like participation in a template. Some people love that. Others, especially those driven by autonomy, start pulling back. Neither is wrong. Here's where things get important. Most frustration in endurance sport right now isn't about effort. It's about control. Psychology calls this reactance. The emotional pushback we feel when our freedom to choose is reduced. Not when something is hard, but when access is gated in ways that feel disconnected to the actual sport. When timing, systems, or qualification structures matter more than readiness, the experience shifts. Again, this isn't an accusation. It's just a structural reality of growth. Large events like Ironmans or major races within the UTMB World Series aren't doing anything wrong. They're businesses managing demand. But psychologically, that shift changes how the athlete relates to the sport, from author to applicant. And for some of us, that's where the friction begins. This is why you are seeing more people self-organize challenges, create solo projects, step away from official race calendars, or redefine what counts. Not because they're bitter, not because they can't get in, but because they're reclaiming meaning and authorship. A solo project, a self-set challenge, or even stepping away from certain race formats isn't a rejection of the sport. It's often a return to its core. Effort, commitment, process, presence. No permissions required. And I want to be very clear about this. Feeling this way doesn't mean you think you're better than anyone else. It doesn't mean others are doing it wrong. It doesn't mean growth is bad. It simply means your motivation runs deeper than participation alone. Some people thrive in big crowds, big events, big moments. Others thrive in quiet consistency and self-defined challenges. Endurance sport is big enough for both. So no, this isn't about quitting triathlon. And it's definitely not about nostalgia. It's about noticing when a system no longer serves the reason you started. And having the courage to adapt without resentment. Because the sport hasn't betrayed you. It's just evolving, and so are you. I hope you stick around. See you in the next one. Bye.